Hello and welcome back. I thought today we would take a brief look at the power hammer and do another review of the accident that kept me out of the shop for the last month and is keeping me from being as productive as I would like probably for another month. And mostly what I'm going to talk about are some of the ideas and suggestions that people presented that might be of benefit to make this tool a little bit safer. And I will discuss some of the more common suggestions and why or why not those might be a good idea, and also some of my ideas on how I'm going to make this a little bit safer. So let's take a little bit closer look at and talk about the accident again real briefly, and then talk about some of the solutions. Now the accident actually occurred because I was inserting this tool under the hammer barehanded, and I let my finger get over the top of it. Just a little bit. I mean, I tried to come in like this, but I failed. And obviously that means that's a bad plan. Now, one suggestion that I received was to insert the tool using tongs, and that is certainly functional. And I'll discuss why I like that or why I don't like that here in just a minute. But I'm going to show you real quick just what that tool was doing and why I was using it. So this tool I use for refining this shape that I have here, a little peak, and this is another version of an upset or a square corner that has a much bigger square for a woodworker's holdfast. And I use this tool to help refine that. And so it's only in there for about that long. So that means I then have to come back, grab the tongs again wherever they were, and take this back out, and they're going to be slippery in the tongs and it's going to cause problems, and I just don't really like that idea. Yes, it keeps my fingers out of the hammer, and for that reason it's a much safer solution, but I'm not sure it's the practical solution. It's like a lot of safety things, if it's inconvenient you won't use it. So what do I think is a better idea? Well, I took a few minutes this morning and I made this tool. It serves the exact same purpose, but it is on a handle. My hand is 18 inches away from the dies. I'm kind of in the way there. This also allows a certain maneuverability while I'm working to reposition if I need to. Plus, I made the back of this tool flat, so I now have a place that I can do a wider part of that process. And I'll show you just real quick how that'll work as well. But I think this is a much better solution. For one thing, it's super convenient. There's no fussing with tongs. You just pick this up and you put it in there. It hangs on the wall behind the power hammer, no problem. Fingers are a long way out. It's a more versatile tool, which means my work will be easier, and it's more efficient than messing around with a pair of tongs. And it's probably, in the long run, I think that makes it safer and better, and this is the solution I came up with. And I need to do that with any other tool that I use in this manner. Another tool that makes you get a little closer to the die than I would like is a kiss block, and these are just spacers so you don't overforge something and you can get something down to a nice precise size. But this clamps into this tool holder over on the edge, and you can bring them in pretty much from the side, but after that incident I think that's asking for trouble, and I'm not going to do that anymore. And again, you can use a pair of tongs. You can insert that in there, tighten this clamp, which is completely out of the way of the dies, and you have a kiss block that gives you a specific height, and that's as far as the hammer will come down. But I don't like it, again, for the same reason that you have to deal with a pair of tongs, and it's just one more thing to fiddle with, and that just makes it a little bit less likely to be used. So I could weld a little handle on those to insert them, but I also have a square hole in this die block. So if I make my kiss block like this, that one needs a little bit of adjustment there. I made this shank just a hair too long right there. But now that sits under the dies. It's got a nice handle. It's easily removed if I need to remove it. Easy to drop in, and I can change tooling out quite quickly. So again, it's safer, it's more convenient, and it's more efficient. So I like that idea as well. I just need to grind the square shank off just a bit. Number one suggestion for how to make this completely safe to change dies was to block the hammer up and shut it down. And that makes perfect sense. You put a block. This handle means that my hand is outside the path of the dies. I can shut the air off, bleed it out. The hammer settles down on the block. Doesn't matter how many times I step on the treadle, that can't go anywhere. But if you're paying attention, you probably already see the problem with this. I don't care how hard I try, I can't put that die in there. I can't change these dies, I can't take this off. There's nothing I can do with the tooling with that blocked up. There are times when that's appropriate for other work on the hammer, but to prevent the accident, this would have done me absolutely no good whatsoever. I'm not saying it's useless. Like I say, there are times if you're making adjustments on the hammer that this would be the safest approach. But for this purpose, I don't believe it helps a bit. One of the locals who actually builds similar hammers to this, I don't know that he builds too many or has them for sale all the time, so I'm not going to drop his name right now, but if he's watching and wants me to put his name in the video, I will. He suggested blocking up the top part of the hammer. And on the ones he builds, the cylinder's in front, and he's got a way to block them up behind, and I think that's a really good idea. For this, it would have to sit right across the top of these guides and engage this block here, or some other way it would have to hold things up. And I haven't figured out how to build a safe block. My fear is that something made out of channel iron or angle iron that slips in here might have a tendency to pop out. And if that hammerhead came down on it while you were shutting the hammer off and it kicked that out, it's kicking it out at your head. So I'm a little concerned about that, but I think with the proper design it can be done very safely. Something that goes all the way around the ram here. There's not much room between this and the cylinder, so it's going to be hard to do, but I think I'm going to build something that will take care of that, and that will be an option that would block the head up without the wooden block. And then you could actually change the dies and have no fear whatsoever of the head coming down while you're changing dies or doing any other work under there. During a forging heat, that wouldn't be practical, so I think the tools with the handle are still the best solution while you're forging. But there are other times your hands are too close to the dies, and that would be a good solution for those times. Here's the other piece of the puzzle right down here. When I was changing that die, if I had stood still, I would not have triggered the hammer and nothing would have happened. But I was still moving because I was in the middle of the heat and I was coming to the hammer, and I managed to put my foot on there. And that's what caused the problem. So the other solution is to wedge this. Now that makes that much less likely you can step that and trigger it. I don't think I would count on that 100% because you could accidentally kick the wedge out, but that does help. The problem with that is you got to bend over to get the wedge in and out. So I think I'm going to make probably a fabricated steel wedge that has a handle so I can grab it from up here where I don't have to bend over, and I wouldn't have to bend over to pick the wedge up. It could just sit next to the hammer and it'd be real easy to put in there. Another idea is something that would flip down somehow, and I haven't figured out how that would work so that you could just flip it with your foot to engage it, flip it with your foot to disengage it. I don't think it'll be too tough, and that would be quite convenient and would be very likely to be used when you need it. So between wedging the treadle, blocking the dies occasionally, although like I say right now that to change tooling, I don't think that helps me much. But there are times that's the solution. And most importantly, tools with handles that guarantee that your hand can't be under there while you're using this tool. And speaking of handles, I for ages made my handles this way with a D-ring, and somebody said that they've heard of people that actually stick their fingers in there, and if this kicks out you could break a finger. I've never done that, and my fingers don't fit in there comfortably. I hold them like this. But to prevent that, I'm going to start making my handles like this, and that just gives them a ring to hang on, but not something you can stick your fingers in, and if that kicks out under the hammer, it just rolls under your hands. So that'll be a better solution there as well. So this new tool can be brought in here just like that. And I can go back to forging, and I can even flip this around and work a bigger section of the flat under here. I have to be careful not to overforge this piece because it's pretty much done. But you can then go in and out as many times as I need to in this heat, quite conveniently. And then that one's about ready to bend. In an upcoming video, we will discuss the fly press, because I think the fly press is one of those really cool tools. Thank you for stopping by and watching. Hopefully some of what I discussed makes sense. I mentioned convenience several times, and I think convenience and safety are important concepts. No matter how safe something makes you, if it's horribly inconvenient, you're less likely to do it. I'm afraid that's just human nature. It's wrong. I shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. So it's not making an excuse, but I think it's just the way a lot of human beings are. Just imagine if your seatbelt in the car required some sort of special procedure. You had to manually thread buckles, and you needed a special tool then to tighten it down and make sure it was safe, and that tool fell beneath the seat, and well, you're just going a couple of miles to the grocery store, you're probably not going to use your seatbelt as often as you should. But seatbelts are quick and convenient, and therefore you use them, I hope. And I think that's important in the shop. The more convenient you can make safety, the more likely you are to follow those safety rules. So a tool with handle that just doesn't invite you to use it the wrong way is going to be a lot safer than a tool that you need to start putting wedges and blocks and prying things up and chains and hooks in the ceiling and all sorts of other song and dance things that really make it a royal pain to follow the safety procedure. So the simpler you can make it, as long as it's safe, the better off you are. I hope that makes sense. I hope this was valuable to somebody. I think I'm going to be a lot safer in the shop from here on out. I think I've learned a valuable lesson. Hopefully you have. So I hope you like the video. Love it if you'd subscribe. Feel free to share this video and any of the other videos. Watch some of the others. If you haven't watched some of the previous videos, there's a lot more actual forge work going on in a lot of those. So get into your shop, make something, but do stay safe, do wear your safety glasses, and have some fun. Thanks.